Hello and welcome to I Want to Grow, and I Want to Grow is all about that, right? You hear me say this all the time, but it's kind of, we've all got to grow, and we can't stand still. Today we are celebrating 90 years of the British Council. Fantastic, right? And the people that they're helping grow is just phenomenal. But today we got a special guest, Mary. Thank you very much for coming on to celebrate with us. Please tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is Mary Pagosi, and I'm serving as the Executive Director of Educator Child, which is a program of the Education Above All Foundation here in Doha.
Wow. Wow. And I'm so glad that, wow. Tell us more about this, please.
So, Education Above All, EAA, is a foundation that focuses on education for the most marginalized around the world. We're a foundation that's been in place since 2012, and we're a foundation with big ambitions and desires to see much better equity around the world in terms of education.
We were talking about how we can read people and how that we don't like doing things on internet. It's very much we're reading from one another. You've got this warm glow around you. You must be doing things that is, with what you're doing with the foundation, that must be so rewarding.
Well, yeah, I think the foundation works in several different areas. So we work in higher education, we work with youth, we work with primary level students, and we work with trying to develop innovations across education. And in addition, we have a whole area that looks at protecting education from attack. So basically, each of us, each program works very, very hard to push this mandate. And as such, we work with partners around the world in over 60 countries now. And the British Council has been one of our partners. So it's really been, I think, an extraordinary opportunity for us, and an opportunity, I think, to serve young children around the world and young people.
Whoa, have you, is there any of those kind of experiences that you've had with individuals that you can share with us?
Well, I think before talking about individuals, I would like to talk a little bit about the program I work with, which focuses on out-of-school children around the world. And so far, we've enrolled over 12 million children in 50-some countries. And that, I think, is really an important thing to do. So it's important because we've actually changed not only those 12 million plus lives, but because of the way our partners work, we've actually changed families' lives. We've changed young people's lives. We've changed the way people in ministries of education work. We've changed the way different organizations, nonprofit organizations work. So I think that really is important, because then when you look at it that way, you can come down to the transformational power that happens in individuals.
12 million people. When you first started doing this, did you ever feel that it was going to get to this stage?
That's a really good question. I came here to start that particular program, not the foundation, but that program within the foundation. And that time, we were looking at trying to target and enroll 6 million children. And that was how I interviewed for the position. And then after I started the job, a decision was made that it should really be 10. That was a better number. And so we've gone from there. And what we've discovered is that the need is enormous. We may have done quite a bit, but compared to what's out there and what's needed, there's still a lot to do. There's close to 70 million children out of school at the primary level right now around the world. And the largest number in sub-Saharan Africa, but the country with the largest number of out-of-school children is Pakistan.
Whoa. The changes that you're having on these places is phenomenal. You must see, so, as you said, 60 million individuals. Then you've got the families as well that are all being influenced by this program.
One hopes so. And in different ways. I think that when you have a lot of programs within a foundation, you can influence in many different ways. So our Alpha Hura program works with young people at the higher education level, and they're currently in discussion with the British Council actually about enabling young people from both Gaza and the West Bank to go to British universities. So while the number is not huge in that particular instance, it's probably around 70 young people. If you think about 70 people getting a higher education and going back home, and you think about their careers and what their careers can do over that period of time, then you begin to understand that the numbers really are different than they look when you first look at them.
Do you sometimes sit there and get lost with the amount of people's lives that you're touching? The numbers are staggering.
I think at a personal level, I don't think about it very much. I really believe in the mission. And I came to Doha actually not planning to stay here very long. I planned to stay for a couple of years and then go back and do the other things that I was doing. And I got caught by the mission and caught by the importance of what we do. I've always been an educator. I've never done anything else in my professional life. And I've always worked in education in the developing world. So, I'm hopeless if you ask me about education in Europe or education in North America. But I've always worked, looking at what happens in poor countries and how I know how education changed my life. I know how education has changed the lives of my friends. And to think that there are millions of people without that opportunity, we as a global unit are losing a whole lot of opportunities by not educating people. So I think, for me, I'm more interested in the kinds of proposals we get, the kinds of approaches that people use, the innovations that we see on the ground, where people are dealing in difficult circumstances with few financial resources for sure, and actually able to make quite a difference. And I think that's the kind of thing that I like to get lost in rather than numbers.
Oh my word. I'm empathizing now. And I know that I'd have a decent night's sleep, that's for sure, thinking of all the good that it was being done. Wonderful, wonderful what you're doing. In saying this, you're in all these different countries. How important is the British Council been?
Well, I think what's important about our partnership with the British Council is it's across the whole foundation. So I already spoke about Alpha Hura, which works at the higher education level. We know that we are in a conversation with the British Council to look at particularly skilling young people in relation to ideally green skills, and looking at how those people can be ready for some kind of work. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the formal sector, but it could be as an entrepreneur or in the informal sector. So our Rota colleagues are looking at that. Our colleagues in the innovations department have spent a lot of time looking at how to do quick interventions, particularly in difficult situations. So they have worked also with the British Council, primarily in Pakistan. And Educator Child has also worked with the British Council in Pakistan. We had 2 projects there over a period of about 8 years in a program called I Am Possible. And that program looked at, it was a lot of work in communities, but it was hundreds of thousands of young people who finished a primary education, and an interesting model that used community engagement and also young people as essentially ambassadors. They were called I ambassadors. And they actually worked with the young people, with the kids, with the families, and really worked to bring kids into school and to keep them there. So, I mean, I know now we're in the process of talking also about developing some collaborative work in Nigeria as a possibility, looking more at another model that the British Council has worked with on the ground that seems to be quite successful, which is an accelerated learning program. And so we're looking at possibly working together in Nigeria on that. And that is also important because next to Pakistan, it's the single country with the second largest number of out-of-school children at the primary level.
I was working with a company in Nigeria, and they told me something staggering. 60% are of the 60% of the population is 24 years old and below. And there's a lot, 230 million, I think, something along those figures. So your work is going to be...
Well, I think what those kinds of figures tell us as educators is that the concepts we have of a school with a teacher and X many child in the classroom are probably not going to work in about a decade, because all those young people now will be moving on. They will be having their own families, and so the populations are going to grow significantly. So we really need, I think, with our partners, to look at alternative forms of offering education. How can the education offer be made broader, more accessible, less expensive, and still give young people the quality of learning that they deserve? So I think those are some of the things that we look forward to working with. So the work with the British Council in Pakistan was really important to us, because it was some of the very early work with communities and with using young people as mentors, as facilitators, those kinds of things. So I think what we look at is not only the numbers. We're very, very interested in transforming education to make it relevant, and not just for today, but for the future, and meaningful in different contexts. And that, I think, is what calls for some, not just innovation, but a real openness to different approaches.
You've got such a calmness about you. But this what you're trying to do can't be as easy as you're making it sound. There must be obstacles that you have to face daily.
I mean, I think, okay, so the most difficult obstacles are the ones the kids face. Okay, those are the most difficult ones. You know, the distance to school. Maybe there aren't any teachers. A lot of kids are now affected by climate change, so the families have to move, and so the kids are on the move. The number of refugees is increasing, so those kids are moving to another country. Maybe it's another language. Maybe there aren't any schools where they end up. For many, the discrimination is there in terms not just of gender, but language, ethnicity, religion. So these are all barriers that kids have to face. And so I think the challenge for us is to, as an organization that's trying to facilitate their learning, is to be able to understand that barrier, listen to what the partner on the ground says is a workable solution, and the solutions have been very different. We funded boat schools in Bangladesh. The boat picked up the kids in the morning, was just a boat, it was a classroom, and then the kids learned on the boat, and at the end of the day the boat went back and the kids got off and went home. In Zambia, we provide bicycles because that's how the kids get to school. School is too far to walk. In many, many countries, we combine the education with school feeding. So I think those are the real problems. So at our level, I think the issues are more trying to understand which partners that make proposals to us really understand, can demonstrate that they understand the problem, that they have a workable solution that they've already tried, because we're not interested in pilot projects. And then can we help them take it to scale? Because with 60, 70 million children out of school right now, you can't work in little tiny projects. You have to take things to scale to make a difference. And if there's anything I love about our foundation, and it's probably because it's also resting here in Doha, is this tremendous commitment to doing something that makes a difference, something big. And I think that for us is probably the challenge, is identifying in whom we can invest, because you can't invest in everybody. You have to make choices, and that's always difficult. And for us, our investment is only at most 50%. We require the partner to put in at least 50%.
Wow. Fantastic work that you're doing. Please, that's just wonderful. And I suppose I would love to talk about this and get into all those projects that you're working on. But we just haven't got enough time in the day. But boy, do I want that conversation with you. What would be that message to the British Council right now for the next 90 years?
I don't know if I have a message for them. I think I have an observation, perhaps. And that is, I've known the British Council in a number of countries for many years. And I think what I'm very appreciative now is how much the Council has changed and how it has been able to respond to and reflect change in the world. The Commonwealth is huge. And it spans such a range of geographies, such a range of cultures and languages and ways of thought and all those things. And it would have been very easy, I think, for the British Council to remain in one space. And in recent years, I think it has changed significantly and has become much more able to respond to and respect the differences in all the countries where it works. And I think that's a real, it's an observation of mine that I think is really one that I give with a lot of respect, because it's very difficult for well-established organizations to change.
And be flexible. Thank you. I've got one more question, and this is the most difficult one. How can you squeeze it into one word what the British Council represents?
Modernization.
Mary, thank you so much indeed. Your work that you're doing with your team, phenomenal.
Thank you.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing your message today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity as well.
Oh,
I appreciate
wow.
it.
This was something very special for me. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.